Hi, and welcome back to Listen and Heal. Today, we aim to illuminate grounding and light, while hopefully uplifting your spirits. And what better way to do that than with music? There is something magical and deeply spiritual about going back to one's musical roots. After all, it is exactly folk music that has kept cultures going and spirits high for millennia. Today's selection comes from the Celtic regions of Scotland and Ireland, as performed by American violinist Jeremy Kittel. Proficient in many genres, this young Grammy-nominated artist treats us to some real uplifting jigs and reels, and to his presence as he sits down for an interview with me in between performances. I hope you'll enjoy, and happy foot tapping.
Hey everyone, I'm Jeremy Kittel, and we're so happy to be part of this series. When I was asked to be part of it, I thought it would be really wonderful to get to do something that I actually haven't done at all since the start of the shutdown, which is play music live with other musicians. You know, so many of us are recording. We've just been sharing tips about, all the video and audio work we've been doing on our own, but I think for all of us, we haven't done very much, and for me, nothing since the start of shutdown in terms of playing live music together. So I'd love to introduce my good friend on guitar, that's Kyle Sanna, and my good friend on the uilleann pipes, that's Cillian Vallely, and we're going to be playing some Irish traditional tunes for you. Hope you enjoy. All right, we're going to play a couple slip jigs. This first one in a very cool D modal kind of energy. The second one is E minor called Kid on the Mountain.
Hi, Jeremy.
Hey, Svetlana, how's it going?
Good. How are you?
I'm pretty good.
Okay, before we start with the big questions, can you tell us a little bit about how you got into Celtic fiddling?
Sure. So, I'm from Michigan, not from Ireland or Scotland, for example, but I actually got into it circuitally because my great grandma was the last of the Scottish accent, family, close family. And so we were close to the side of the family that was, Scottish immigrant. And so my mom was super into that music, and we used to go to these festivals. Where they would toss the huge caber, the telephone pole sized, log of wood, and there was a fiddle competition there, and I saw that and was interested in that, and this was all when I was probably about 9 or 10 years old, and then
Wow.
got into that, and then from there ended up meeting some great Irish musicians in Detroit, a great Irish fiddler named Mick Gavin, who came from County Galway in Ireland and came to Detroit to make his life there, and sells carpets and plays great Irish fiddle. And so I ended up connecting with him, and he taught me a lot. And then once you're in a community, communities these days, especially even more than ever, aren't as geographical as they are just connected and everything. So I ended up meeting more people in Chicago regionally, and then going to Ireland to study some, and studying with great Scottish fiddle players as well. And just, yeah, way led to way, I suppose.
I love it. That's great. And what does Celtic music do for you in terms of grounding? When I think of folklore music, I'm thinking of my roots, Bulgarian roots. I know you're a little bit familiar with that style of folk music, but I'm thinking of the people, I'm thinking of the earth, I'm thinking of probably thousands of years old traditions. So sometimes when I need true grounding, that's what I would play or listen to. Do you feel the same way?
Sure. I think, different folk musics are so interesting in how they're different in a way from music that has developed more as performance music or, religious music, worship music, and over time. So, and these days, Celtic music, breaking it down into Irish music, Scottish music, there are many more different sub-styles and everything. They are also performance music very much. There are many people who just make their living, performing and teaching, etc. But at the core, these musics are really community. It's really community music, and so it's all built around this design kind of the music to come together and everybody join and play together and connect together in these tunes and in this rhythm. That's the traditional Irish session, for example. And then there's a huge traditional dance element as well, with traditional music of various kinds
that's huge and really, of course, predates recorded music. So this was a great way to have a dance with people and have fun. The only way to have a dance before, recorded music was to make the music somehow yourselves. So, for example, my great aunt and her family, different side of the family, they had a family band up in northern Michigan. And I got this great letter from my aunt a while back about how they would play for the Lumberjacks every Saturday night. And her brother played piano and their other sister played fiddle. And they had this whole family band around the early 20th century.
Yeah.
So I think in that way, it's about coming together. And it's also not about spending your life pursuing it and making it a career. These are styles that were built on, doing it for your enjoyment, for your connection to other people, for your connection with the community. And so it's only been a relatively recent thing that you have all these practitioners who do these styles professionally and full time more. It was very rare, I think, the further you go back in a way. So yeah, I think that's a wonderful, wonderful thing. And that's what I love about playing, say Irish music is that connection, is that coming together of energy and musicians playing, interacting simultaneously in these subtle and really, really moving ways.
That's really beautiful. Has this music kept you going and been your lifeline through this COVID shutdown, even more so than usual?
I think music in general is always really very important to me. And, Celtic music in particular hasn't been more important. Everything, as many people are interested in many styles of music, so am I. And I was listening the other night to some of the music, some of the Irish music I got into first when I was just getting into this music. It was like the current bands at the time, the late 90s and the early 2000s, and it was just so exciting to hear them. And so I was kind of listening back to some of that. And so I was getting a bit of that nostalgia of listening to some of your favorite music you haven't listened to in a while. And now you're a different person, and you've changed, you hear different things and everything as well. But I mean, music is just constantly really important to me in general in life, and certainly in this time too.
Yeah, that's very true. Has your music making process changed at all now that we are all more stuck, so to speak? But I know there's also been a silver lining for many of us here. And
Sure. I think for me, I feel, to be honest, pretty fortunate in this particular season, so to speak, in that before the shutdown, I was doing about half of my work out in the world and about half of my work at home, in that I'm a composer and arranger, and I was doing this weird thing that very few instrumentalists were doing, which was recording yourself at home and sending tracks around. So I was doing that for a lot of different projects and clients and just creating music from home. So I feel like for me, I've been lucky in that while the change was so dramatic and we had all of these plans we'd worked on for, in some case more than a year, and everything that just completely fell apart, I've been able to go and do what I was doing about half of the time. I mean, not in any kind of, completely busy way. It's tough economically and everything in different ways, as it is for many, but I've been able to basically, it has felt like doing that, but instead of doing it half of the time, doing it all of the time, whether it's doing work for certain projects or investing in music for the future, writing music, finishing other things that I've had on the back burner, learning, guitar, practicing things that I've been meaning to practice for years, and just trying to use the time well. And I think there are all these different things about working from home and doing this kind of work that I find really interesting. I feel like it's all about, how you use your time and your energy and try not to waste moments in life, of course, and certainly during this time as well. Oh, I got to show you this cool book. People
Yes, please.
love it. So this is a book that I think is just wonderful, called Daily Rituals.
Yes.
And it's called How Artists Work. And I just fell in love with this book. My dear friend showed it to me a few years ago, and it's a book that I'll just read in the morning, because you can just read a few pages, and it has all of these stories about, like, what did artists do every day throughout history. So there's this book, there's a sequel that's also really great that features more female artists, because the author realized just, first time around how many of them were not female, and that one's really great too. But these books are they're so interesting, because it just goes into the banal details. It's perfect, I think, for this time of, like, how do we spend our days? How do people structure their days?
Speaking of things that keep us feeling well, you mentioned meditation earlier.
Mm-hmm.
I really believe in that.
Yeah.
And for a few years now, it's been an important part of my life. And sometimes it's wonderful and transcendent, and other times it's hard. I have to really focus. But how big a part of your life and routine is mindfulness and meditation in specific?
It's definitely a consistent part. I find that taking some time is really so helpful for me. I think it's especially helpful, maybe even more so these days, given that we have these incredibly exciting, distracting machines that are just there for us that don't even feel like machines hardly,
Right.
for us to just, read more content. I think, that's one thing that we also, in addition to food these days, need to be mindful of not over consuming, information necessarily. But for me, I try to take some time every morning to meditate, have no other, stimulating activities or devices, and just take that time. And for me, it's fairly, to be honest, fairly just personal and unstructured at the moment. Not any certain modality or
Right.
Certain group that I'm connected with, but even that is really, really helpful. And I find, just very, very helpful. I notice a difference, and even the simple thing of reminding yourself every day that you don't have to do something, right? That's right. A little bit like Alexander technique, like the not doing of something. But I feel like as human beings, we need to remind ourselves that sometimes it's not the doing, it's just like, not reacting or not doing something, not falling into a certain pattern, I think is, more of an option if we take that time to be still every day. So I should, I would probably benefit from doing some more, and maybe being connected a little more to a community. But my practice, so to speak, which again is very informal, is kind of a mix of meditation, kind of a mix of just reflection, kind of a mix of even prayer. Having my spiritual beliefs changed a few years ago with some kind of big events that happened in my life, and so it all kind of shifted in some ways, and is very individual at the moment. But really, I find that it's very important to me, for sure, and just for my everyday life and being a good person too.
It's beautiful. It really feeds all channels, doesn't it? And I completely agree with you that it's also individual. My needs have too changed. There were moments of my life when only guided meditation worked with certain kind of music, and now, just like you, I'm finding that it's not working so much, or maybe I'll do a little bit of that and a little bit of my own individual, literally quiet time, going inward and concentrating on the space rather than a person, an event, or completely going out of the time and space continuum that we're so immersed in as humans.
That's wonderful. Yeah, it's amazing. it really is amazing what that as human beings, I just marvel that you can change. I believe in free will in general, and so I love this notion, this idea. You know, you can change your thoughts and change your who you want to be. Visualization is such a magical thing as a human being, such a magical thing, and in a variety of in anything really, it's so amazing. And I find that's a really wonderful thing as well. I used to be very much into a Buddhist group that was center almost of the practice was like visualization. And it's really quite effective for remembering who you want to be, I feel like, as well, you know, and yeah.
That is so beautiful and so right. And it's funny you mentioned visualization. I was just reading an article the other day by Dr. Joe Dispenza. He's a neuroscientist who has healed himself. In fact, I have a couple of his books here. I can show you later. But he was pointing out how important visualization and imagination are. And for the first time in a while, I stopped and thought about the difference between the two words, which I really should do more often. English is not my first language, and I often feel like
you never know.
I should still be learning with the dictionary 200 new words a day. But apparently visualization could include memories, which sometimes are beautiful and important because they are at the basis of us as humans, of our existence to this point. But then imagination could completely throw you forward, especially when used during meditation, into creating a whole new future. And that just sounded so exciting.
Yeah, I got chills when you said that. And I think there's to that, you know, something that's really beautiful and amazing about that. To keep that in mind, you know, keep in mind, an Alexander Technique teacher once said at a workshop, you know, just remembering that you always have a choice, you know, with whatever situation you're in, I think is really wonderful and related to that.
Well, we're going to play a few tunes here. The first one in this medley is The Rolling Waves, and then we'll go into the Glen Road to Carrick and finish it up with the Abbey Reel.
It's funny how we've come full circle. I mean, the topic of this episode is grounding and light, and we started with folk music and meditation. But that really, meditation is huge in grounding as well, and bringing of light too.
Yes, I do think, yeah, I think so. And there have been times I know in my life when I wasn't doing any kind of practice, and I just kind of felt like I was stumbling more through things, stumbling through the days more, and stumbling without a clear sense of where I wanted to go, without maybe taking things for what they were, or you know, a lot of different things. But I found, you know, that the practice, some kind of a practice, is really, really important. There was a time when I was not into composing music, for example, and I was feeling like it's difficult, and it takes a lot of time, and at that period in my life, I had a lot of negative judgment about my music making and my you know, instrumental playing, like all of these different things. I was being so critical, and I was not only being critical, I was being negative, and I think that's a distinction. So one thing that changed my mind then about composing was I talked in the span of a week to two really wonderful young composers who I thought were just amazing, and they both said the exact same thing to me independently in the same week, which was, I'm always down to compose. I'm always down to write music, you know? And I thought, there's something really different about where they're at right now with composing than where I'm at with it. And I want to be there. And so I kind of made that choice. And I think a big part of getting there is to let go of perfectionism, I think, in life, I think, in a lot of ways, and certainly in music. Because, you know, music is, like many things, it's going to be messy at first. And so if you have, whether it's a new skill, you could be so good at the violin. You could just be one of the most amazing instrumentalists ever. But if you didn't practice this little thing over there, you're probably not going to be able to do it. So you practice, you know?
Right.
And so there, you need to be able to be willing to get into this sandbox, you know, and like play around and keep the vision of the thing I think you want to do in mind, but not be negative about it emotionally, not add that negative thing. And I think it's the same with creating. I feel really lucky to not have felt that way in a long time, to not have felt that kind of, you know, writer's block or whatever you want to call. But I feel like perhaps a lot of writer's block can relate to kind of that judgment, you know, negativity, as opposed to being open to this process, you know, that it takes a lot of time for me to write things that I really enjoy, but, and it can be very kind of nebulous, the way projects at first in our lives can be very unformed, but, you know, if you have faith through that things are happening and that you're moving forward still, even though, you know, some composers will say for the first 2 weeks, it looks like they're not doing anything. They're just like, spiritually, things are happening, you know? And if you have faith through that and you get started, you know, in a project or a piece of music or something, then I feel like it's easier to convince yourself once things are rolling that, you know, good things are happening and this is going to be okay.
I'm so glad you brought these points up, because a lot of our colleagues right now, and a lot of creative people, I think, writers too, are having Willow agrees, are having a hard time holding on to the joy or finding inspiration every day. And what you said about not being negative, not being so self-critical, which, as you know, for performers and musicians like us, sometimes is really difficult not to be very self-critical, not to be so self-judgmental.
Sure.
And also there are times when we're just having a little bit of a harder time. I remember going through a time of my life when I even felt like I lost a little bit of the joy of my art, which is very rare because the violin and music has literally been my life, as has been yours, I know. So in moments like that, what else has helped you in addition to what you just said?
Go to YouTube, pull up David Oistrakh playing
love it.
you know, Debussy. And I actually, I'll start off a lot of practice sessions just watching something that just really inspires me. Not necessarily something like virtuosic, but just like if you can be reminded of how beautiful the instrument can be, that's such a great place to start. And I really feel like YouTube is a revolution in terms of having music available and having just being able to see all of these videos of people, you know, as violinists, you know, for example, playing, or as whatever we do. It's really revolutionary, I think, in that, and just that's available to us. And so I find a lot of inspiration that way. Same in different things from writing music as well. And then having that as more of a jumping off point. And I'll even practice with that stuff still on, you know, or I'll practice with the recording a lot of the time of a great band playing, because I'm you know, kind of practicing playing with this band and this style that I really want to improve on. And I find that immersion, you can create that kind of immersion. So I'd say, you know, find whatever can inspire us right now. I know that I'm counting my lucky stars, because I have a lot of friends who have felt really distraught by not having the performing schedule and the performing rhythm and all of that, not being able to get together and make music live with friends and for people. And so I do feel really lucky. But I do think there's possibilities still during this time of you know, finding that edge of enjoyment, for example, and improvement with the projects you're doing, with what you're practicing, or with what you're working on, and, you know, investing for the future when this crazy difficult phase is over. There's an app that I find is really good as a string player. There's an app. I mean, how many times have I talked about an app yet? But it's called Mark Lauren Bodyweight Training. And it's perfect for this time, because you don't need a gym, and you use your body weight basically for all these different exercises. So I'll find it'll really even my back out or my body out after playing, you know, a lot and using the computer a lot as well and whatnot.
Are you working on something we should know about, or is it all hush hush until it comes out? Is there anything you want to share with us?
Sure. Yeah. So there have been a variety of different things. One project is still under wraps, and I can't talk about one main project I've been working on quite a bit. One thing that I'm really excited to share with people soon is a piece of music that I've been writing for symphony band, for a commission for the University of Michigan Symphony Band. And I'm just so excited about it. Nobody's heard it yet, except for me and I guess the musicians there. We did a run through last December, but it's been a wonderful challenge. It's also been, you know, you're talking about grounding and light and all of this. That piece has been really intense for me and very healing and very cathartic, as I lost somebody very close to me a couple of years ago. And this piece in particular has been my way of, and I've been, to be honest, inviting her spirit to join in the creation, if that's any kind of way. And
absolutely,
it makes sense to some people, I'm sure. But at least her spirit and her energy and everything. And so that's been a really meaningful piece of music to work on, and I hope it'll be really meaningful for people to hear as well when we end up doing that. I think wonderful music. There's so many different genres. There's light, and contrary to what people who don't like other styles might think, there's usually light just pretty much every genre of music, you know, and beauty and uplifting qualities. And you know, I find it fascinating as a musician. I don't know about you, but we study music, we get to know it, we get to be practitioners of it, we get to live in music and work in music and understand all these ways that it works, and you use that in your work, but it's still as mysterious a thing to me at base level as ever, and more even of a spiritual thing to me than ever. And I do personally, that's my belief, is that it is a spiritual thing that ties into some things that are beyond just
our senses. Yeah.
Yeah.
I completely agree. Yeah, because music is felt, and when you feel something with your heart, it's like Antoine de Saint-Exupéry from The Little Prince. You probably read it when you were young, but there is one line in there that this which is invisible to the eyes can only be seen with the heart. And I really believe that music fits perfectly in there. It's just something we see and we feel with our heart.
Thank you so much for having me on and having me be a part of this.
Thank you for making the time, for
Absolutely.
your talent, for your humanity, for everything. Thanks.
Right back at you.
I look forward to reconnecting soon, Jeremy.
Okay, take care. Bye-bye.
Bye.
All right, thank you guys so much for listening. We're very happy to get to play together live and to be part of this series. And we're going to play one more set of tunes. This is starting off with a Scottish tune called Jenny Dan the Weaver, then into Lexi McCaskill's, and ending up with a tune called The Black-Haired Lass. Thanks again.
We hope this episode brought you some solace and joy today. If you liked it, please share with family and friends and consider making a donation on our website, The Fractured Atlas. In doing so, you'll be ensuring that we can continue hiring artists in need of work and bringing this healing vessel your way. In order to spread more light, especially amongst our youngest viewers and followers, today we're making a donation to My Brother's Keeper Alliance, an organization started by President Obama in 2014. Its focus is on addressing the gaps in opportunities for Black and non-Black children of color and immigrant descent. Having come here as a young immigrant myself, I know too well the hard work, struggles, and incredible support needed to make it. Thank you for being with us. Stay well, and until next time.